Hello, everyone. This is Aryanna Prasad, and I'm here today with my good friend Vik Chokshi. And he is a very talented journalist in the Chicago area. And we wanted to do something a little bit different before Super Bowl Sunday. And that is, we want to talk about all the fun bets that happen on Sunday. You might be doing squares with your friends. I don't know what you guys have going on, but one time honored tradition is prop bets. And Vik is a little bit of an expert in that. So I wanted to bring him on the show to teach us all a little bit more. So Vik, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I wouldn't call myself an expert, but yeah, I know a little bit about it. So it'll be fun talking about it.
Yeah, I'm excited. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do and what your background is?
Yeah, definitely. So I actually write for radio.com sports and BetQL. And so a lot of gambling articles. They just started a new sports gambling vertical. Gambling's kind of the new rush, as you know, and as everyone sees. So it's been really, really cool. I've been with them a couple months now and just saw a little of everything from making actual picks to talking to odds makers to doing stories like the one you're having me on for, like the history of prop betting. I got to talk to some Las Vegas odds makers. I got to write the story about how props started. It had some Chicago flavor to it because the Bears and the Bulls were involved. So it's been really, really cool. My background was actually like in IT. When I got out of college, I was a consultant. I had my own business for a while. And then a couple of years ago, I really just was having a midlife crisis, wanted to get into sports. And here we are a couple of years later. So it's been a great ride.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And you are such an inspiration to anyone wanting to get into this industry. It is definitely possible if you work hard and hustle. So love it, respect it. Yes. So yeah, I will actually link to your article in these comments so people can read a little bit further, but I just want you to tell the story in your own words. So what exactly is a prop bet for those who don't know?
Yeah, so most of you that watch the Super Bowl have probably bet on a prop bet with your friends. It can be literally anything from like the coin toss. Is it going to come up heads or tails, or what color the Gatorade's going to be, right? So, or how long the national anthem is going to be. But like by definition, prop bets are kind of basically bets that are not directly tied to the score of the game, right? So, how many touchdowns is Tom Brady going to throw for, or how many yards is Tyreek Hill going to catch? Those are some different examples. But a lot of people that aren't really into gambling, like you said, they do squares, or they'll, have some fun with some contests and bet on the coin toss and different things like that. So those are some really popular ones that but it's picked up so much steam, especially with gambling getting legalized across the country, that there's now like 1,000 different prop bets and ways that you can actually bet on the Super Bowl tomorrow, which is pretty insane. And it all, really started with William Perry. That's what I wrote about in my article. But long story short, there was a casino odds maker in Las Vegas. He was realizing that like all the Super Bowls at that time were blowouts. So people weren't really, watching in the second half. They weren't really having fun. The games were all decided. So they were like, let me try to think of something that makes the game a little bit more fun and kind of attracts casual bettors, right? Like just people like, my wife, for example, she does not really love sports like I do. She'll watch the Super Bowl halftime show or, things like that. So the casino guy was like, let's try to think of something outside of the box. And his name was Art Mantris. It was at the Caesars in Vegas, which is a very famous spot. I'm sure, you've been there, or you know about it. But he then fell in love with like William Perry. So this is I'm a little older, so I'm showing some age now. But this is when I was growing up, the Bears were actually good. Like, I know that'll blow a lot of people's minds, but like the Bears were the best team in football for a little while growing up. And it was like the 85-86 team. And they had a amazing defense. And one of the guys on that defense was named William Perry. He was this 350-pound monster. I don't know if you've heard of him, but at the time he was actually like not only a football player, but he was kind of catching on as like a big celebrity. He had like Coke commercials. He was on David Letterman at the time. So that's kind of how all of this came about, was that casino odds maker was like, well, why don't we throw a prop out there with William Perry and be like, hey, can he score in this game? And so that was literally how the idea originated. And in the game, the Bears also had Walter Payton. I'm sure, one of the most popular running backs of all time. It was 3rd and 1. The game was a blowout. And everybody thought they were going to give it to Walter Payton, right, to run it in. He hadn't had a touchdown yet. And then in came William Perry. He got the handoff and he scored. And people went nuts because the odds for this was like, it was crazy. It was like 20-1. So if you would put $100 on this thing, you would have won like $2,000, for example. So literally everyone in the casino went crazy. The odds maker was like upset because they lost a lot of money, right? But everyone loved it. And literally that's how props were bet, because then they realized that like, hey, we can start doing things like this, do crazy bets, do things like cross sport bets where, that was the other Chicago flavor to this was Michael Jordan, 1990 Chicago Bulls. That's when they were, getting really hot. And the San Francisco 49ers were in the Super Bowl. Same thing. One of the odds makers was like, this game's going to be a blowout. Let's put a crazy bet out there. Michael Jordan against the 49ers. Like, who can score more points? And the same thing happened. Like, people went insane. Everyone bet on this prop. And literally, that's how now you have all these thousands of different bets that you can bet on. So sorry for a long-winded story, but that's what I wrote about. And that was kind of the gist of it, is how it originated and how now it's caught on to be one of the biggest things. Like, it's going to be more bet on than the actual game itself. Like, people actually bet more on props than they do on like who's going to win tomorrow.
Yeah, no, and I really appreciate you going through that history because I didn't know any of that. I love that the 85 Bears are a part of this. I love that any Chicago sports fan, I think, would enjoy all the elements to this story. And I think the great thing about prop bets is it brings in people who aren't even huge football fans. We all know that the Super Bowl has become a cultural phenomenon throughout, American culture. Obviously, the Weeknd is playing for the halftime show, and that'll be exciting and interesting because it's a pandemic. So there's just so many elements with the Super Bowl, with the musical artists and everything, and so much to bet on. So I think that's a fun way to get everyone involved. So thank you for explaining that. But what are some of, as you said, when you were a kid, you grew up with the Bears and you got to see that. But what are some of your favorite prop bets, or the more interesting prop bets you've seen over the years?
Yeah, I love the cross sport ones. Like for tomorrow, you can actually bet like who's going to score more, Steph Curry or Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Like Joel Embiid tonight or the Chiefs tomorrow, So I really like those cross sport ones. Those are kind of fun to me. Like you said, the casual people, they love like coin toss, Gatorade, National Anthem, because those are fun, right? Like a lot of times people get scared off when it comes to gambling because you have to be like an expert, right? You got to do research and all this. Like there's no research involved in like the coin toss, right? It's literally like, right away, it's like instant gratification and you kind of go off of that. So, but yeah, I actually like ones where I can do some like research and like, find some stats and try to think that I have like a little bit of an edge, especially if I'm putting money on it, right? So I've definitely put a few different bets down for tomorrow. We can talk about them if you want.
Yeah.
We can talk about some of my favorite ones. But yeah, those are some of the ones that I actually like.
I do want to know, actually, and if you can tell all our viewers, what are you betting on tomorrow?
All right. I have a lot of different bets. Again, take it with a grain of salt. Like, I'm not a big bettor. This is, for fun and make the game fun. I'm also like in the industry, in the business, right? So, I throw a couple of bucks out there, have a beer, have some fun, watch the game. So, I don't advise anybody to like go crazy or put thousands of dollars on these, bets or anything like that. But, we'll start with a fun one. I like Mike Evans as the first touchdown catcher. So basically when I look at like first touchdown kind of prop bets that are out there, I look for guys that can actually, one, have a chance to score in the game. And then two, I like guys that have some like long shots. So, I got Mike Evans at 12-1. So that means if you put like $10 on him and he catches the first touchdown, you can win $120. So basically I like him for a few reasons. One, he gets a lot of touchdown catches on this team, right? Like he has 13 touchdowns this year in 12 games. He's caught their first 2 touchdowns. They've actually scored 5 times via the pass in their last 5 games. And so I really think, one, legit, he just had his chance to score. And then two, there's a good chance that he's going to be one of the guys that gets the ball at the red zone, right? So, that again, that's like how I use stats a little bit and just a little bit of logic to come up with a bet. Super Bowl MVP, that's another fun one, right? And so usually it's like the quarterback that wins the award. But odds makers know that everyone's going to bet on the quarterback. So it's like you can win like 1-to-1, for example. Like if you pick Mahomes, $10, you win like $10, right? So again, I was looking for some long shots. And so I tried to think outside the box. Usually if it's not the quarterback, it's either a guy on defense or it's either a running back, right? Because receivers, like if Tyreek Hill goes nuts, they'll probably give it to Mahomes a lot of times. And so I liked a couple of guys. I took Leonard Fournette, the running back for the Bucs. He's at plus 2,500, so like crazy, insane odds. But he's been getting more touches and carries in the playoffs, and the Chiefs are really, really bad against the run. They're 31st when it comes to just against the run, against pass catchers. They're actually the worst team in football when it comes to red zone defense as well. And so if not Brady, maybe Fournette goes off. If he can get 100 yards and a couple of touchdowns and they actually win, then it's worth like 25-1. So like, you put $10 on it, you can win $250. That's a nice little payday. And then defense, like there's a couple of guys on defense. The Chiefs offensive line is really messed up right now. They lost their best guy, Eric Fisher, coming in this game. So Shaq Barrett, I think there's some really, really good value on him. And then Jason Pierre-Paul, you can get those guys at like plus 5,000, plus 6,000. So like $10 can win you like $500, $600. But the Chiefs line is messed up. And then both of those guys are just really good. If you remember like Von Miller, he played against Cam Newton a few years ago. If a guy can like force a couple of like fumbles, get a couple of sacks, he has a chance of winning, right? So those are a couple of like my favorite bets that I did. I did a bunch. We could talk like for an hour if we want. The last big one that I really liked was like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers plus 10.5 rushing yards against the Chiefs. So basically, if the total yards of both teams, when you combine them, I get 10.5 more yards with the Bucs. And so I think it's going to be a close game. And so I see Tampa Bay running the football, trying to keep it away from Mahomes a little bit. And again, Kansas City is really bad against the run. And then on the flip side, Tampa Bay is really good against the run. It's like number one versus last place. And so to me, I have it at pretty even. So if I'm getting 10.5 yards, I got that one at William Hill. So always shop around for like the best value that you guys can get when it comes to these. But those are my three favorite ones going into the game. And then I like Tom Brady. I took the Bucs plus 3.5 when the game came out. Again, I think this one's going to be a back and forth classic. And I trust their defense a little bit to get pressure on Mahomes. And then lastly, like I talked to a lot of odds makers in Vegas, offshore books, East Coast. Everyone's picking the Chiefs. Like 10 out of 10 people are picking the Chiefs. 10 out of 10 people are putting money on the Chiefs. And so I don't know. I like to usually kind of go against the grain a little bit, especially in a big game like this. And so just another reason, not saying like that's the only reason to take the Bucs, but again, I like their defense. Tom Brady, there's not a lot we can really say that hasn't been said already. Like I trust him to make the decisions. And I also like just kind of being on the opposite side of like everyone in this game.
Yeah, those are great bets. And I love that your background in sports and that you did all of this research. It just informed your decisions. So I know that these are fun things, but you can actually prepare yourself to make an educated guess. And you've just brought up so many great points, but just to touch on them, Mike Evans for the first touchdown, that's who he's been all season. Playoff Lenny, I would love to see him pop off in this game. We're all hoping for that. And this run game, I think, will be a key to this game and to whoever wins. It will be very important because everyone's talking about the two quarterbacks, but it's more than that. Would love to see this Bucs defense really shine and for them to really get their flowers, as people say. And then I think the biggest key is don't bet against Tom Brady. I feel like everyone should have learned that lesson at this point. If you keep picking on, pick 199, like that's just going to fuel him and make him angrier, and then he's going to beat you. So, I'm sure he's looking at all the bets and seeing everyone pick the Chiefs and saying, okay, we'll show him. But I like that. I might have to go put some money on the Bucs. But these are all great picks. I appreciate that. But I want to talk about some of the fun ones that people might be more familiar with. Last week, we talked about Gatorade color. And so I want to know, like, what are some of the fun ones? And then what are you picking, even if you're not putting money on them, but just for fun, what are you expecting for tomorrow?
Yeah, so the Gatorade one is fun. Like, basically, like, orange is the favorite. There's a couple reasons for that. One, it's been, like, the most picked color over the last 7 years. And then last year when the Chiefs won, they actually dumped orange on Andy Reid, right? So everyone's always looking for an angle. So like orange is the favorite. And then when it comes to like, I would say, give me a second. I'm going to get you the stats. So orange was the color of choice in the past 5 of 11 Super Bowls. And that's another reason why it's the favorite, that and Andy Reid. So, and then I asked my wife actually, because I wanted to make it fun, right? Like it's like you can do all this research about it. She actually picked orange, which was pretty interesting. And she asked me like, who's the underdog? So again, this is someone like who watches like the Super Bowl, right? Like she'll watch it for the fanfare and like the celebrities and the halftime, but she really didn't know like who the underdog was. So I'm like Tampa Bay. She's like, oh, what's their colors? I'm like orange and white. She's like, okay, I'll go orange because I'm rooting for the underdog, right? So it was kind of interesting to me. I asked my 6-year-old daughter what color she would pick. She told me to just like pick my favorite color. And so my favorite color is blue. Literally everything that I own is blue. So I put $10 down on blue. I know there's no like rhyme or reason or rationale other than that. It was like $10 to win $80. And so, just having some fun with it. It's another fun one. A lot of people will be tuning in to see what gets poured on his head right after the game, right? So that's one of the fun ones. The National Anthem, I think that's another really, really big and fun one. I don't know how much you saw on Twitter yesterday, but someone stood outside of the stadium and recorded their rehearsal. And he posted it online, and it became kind of a big controversy, right? Because so the time was set to 2 minutes. So basically it's from when the singers start until when they end their last brave note. That's the total time of the bet. And so it was set to 2 minutes. Yesterday, a guy literally, and I'll send it to you after this, he stood outside the stadium, recorded, and it came out to 2 minutes and 15 seconds. And so everyone started taking the over, like pounding it in their book. And so all the books actually ended up taking the bet down. And right now you can't bet on it. So that's another pretty crazy story, a fun one. But yeah, people look for like all types of like edges that they can get, right, when it comes to this kind of stuff, because there's real money involved. And then the coin toss, there's literally no real research involved. It's literally like a 50-50 proposition. But like there's people out there betting thousands of dollars on the coin toss. Like Pat McAfee, I'm sure you know him, the former Colts punter. He's got his own great show. I think he just threw like 20-30K down on the coin toss. There's guys in like Vegas throwing like 5K down on the coin toss. Like these are real gamblers, right? Because it's literally like the flip of a coin. But those are normally like the fun big three. What other ones have you like? Are you betting on any of these, or are there any other ones that you've seen?
So my boyfriend and I, we love watching the Super Bowl together. And so we do prop bets between each other, and it's a fun little competition. And so in the past, like he's won a lot, but sometimes I'll actually win, which is exciting. But we did it through the season. So I have to check, but we've done the Gatorade color one. I know that. I actually didn't know that about orange. So I'm glad to know that. I'll use that now. But yeah, sometimes we'll guess things like the number of yards that a certain receiver will get, who will score the first touchdown. I think we did the National Anthem one before, but we did do a lot more of the football ones. So yeah, that's something we do for fun too. And yeah, it is really exciting. Some of them you can prepare for. Some I'll look and I say, oh, I should have researched that. I could have predicted this. And then some it's just, flip of a coin, literally. So
you know your stuff. You write football, you do fantasy, right? So it's so similar. The cool thing about the player props is it's pretty similar to your fantasy breakdown, right? Like you're looking for like a matchup. You're trying to see like, hey, maybe he's going to go off this game, and they set a number to like 82, and you think like, hey, Tyreek's going to have a monster game. So that actually happened. So like when the Tyreek props first came out, they were pretty low. The yards were like 87, 89, and they actually got pounded in Las Vegas. Like people were pounding the over. So the odds makers have moved that number up to like 95 now, I think. And so now it's kind of, at a good number. But again, like player props is like fantasy in a way. And that's another reason why like people are getting so into these player props is like, we've already been doing it for so long with fantasy football. It's like, try to translate some of that when it comes into gambling.
Yeah, that's a great point. People do play fantasy with their friends, and they're actually prepared to take on the Super Bowl, the biggest gamble there is all season. So it's really exciting. But gosh, you've just given us so much insight. I do want to ask though, you mentioned your wife and children. How are you planning on spending your Super Bowl in quarantine?
Yeah, every year usually we have my friend circle that I've grown up with, and we watch the Super Bowl together. It's literally kind of been tradition. All our family. It's cool to see like 8 guys, and now it's like everyone with their families, right? Like wives, kids, potluck. You like everyone brings food and alcohol and dessert, and the kids play, and we watch football and have fun, and we do squares. And this year, unfortunately, it's off the table, right? With COVID going on, and like some people have gotten vaccines, some haven't, some have gotten sick, some haven't. So unfortunately, it's just going to be kind of my wife and kids and us. And so we'll try to make it fun. We're gonna kind of make some appetizers. They're making some pinwheels, and I might have a couple of White Claws and just watch the game, relax. It's also a big day for us just when it comes to work. So I will be kind of working throughout the day as well. It's going to be all hands on deck starting at 10 a.m. tomorrow. So probably just watch the game with my family, have the laptop on my second screen, as you will, on my lap, and just kind of watch the game. And that's another reason why maybe I'm trying to be optimistic, but I just hope it's a close game and it's a good game, just because it's different this year. You're not spending it with your fans, so like with your friends and fam. So if it's a blowout, you have other things to do, right? So I'm just trying to. Maybe that's why I like the Bucks too, like being optimistic and just hoping for a good game.
Yeah, actually, and you mentioned it earlier, but it's funny to think that a Tom Brady team is the underdog. We haven't seen that since 2000. So, but it is kind of betting wise, it is definitely what the case is. So it'll be interesting to see. And whichever way it goes, it'll either be back to back or another ring for Brady. I mean, it's a storybook kind of game. So this will be. I feel like there's just so much to write about here. And it'll be exciting and fun and maybe a little hectic for you tomorrow and for all us sports journalists, but definitely a blast to cap off the season. But thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. And I'm actually posting your article. So now that's on the video. Everyone can see it. So please read his article, follow him on social media. His Twitter handle's right there. But thank you so much, Vik, for coming on the show. We really enjoyed having you.
No, thanks for having me. It's been a blast. I'm glad we finally got to connect. And same goes for you. I love the work that you're putting out, so keep it up.
Thank you so much. And to everyone out there, we really hope that you enjoy your Super Bowl Sunday and hopefully win some money.
Yeah, let's do it. Good luck.
Thanks.